Hello and welcome to the bonsai garden. It's currently early December and we're beginning to experience freezing temperatures in the UK, but despite that I'm going to continue working on my Japanese maple trees. I still have a number of Japanese maples that I want to review and take a look at. Since the leaves have dropped and it's early December, now is a good opportunity to review the structure and decide on any corrective future action that's required. This particular tree I bought from All Things Bonsai, perhaps about 2.5 years ago, and it's slowly been developing in this pot, and I think this is a candidate next year for going into a more attractive, shallower, wider pot to try and encourage the spread of the root base and get some nice nabari going on there. What I want to do today though is I want to have a look at the branch structure now that the leaves have fallen and decide on the placement of those branches and whether there's anything on there that we don't need. So branches growing up, growing down, anything that's dead, anything that's growing back towards the center of the tree, bar branches, stepped branches, branches where we've got multiple coming out of one particular spot where there's the potential for creating inverse taper, and just aesthetically deciding whether I need to trim back branches, looking at the length of internodes between the buds and things like that. So let's get started. It's always a good idea to take a look at your tree from above to get a sense of where the branches sit in terms of 3D space. What you don't want is a tree where all the branches are aligned in one particular plane, so that as you rotate the tree it looks very flat. So I can see here that everything seems to be going okay. There's some opportunity for placing branches to get a wider spread of the canopy, and we'll see how we get on with that. One of the things that I'm particularly interested in looking at today when I review is the distance between the internodes. So you can see, for example, here I've got some buds and I've also got some buds here, but I've got this quite long length between the two, and what I can benefit from doing is if I cut the branch at this point here, those two buds will be activated and shoot out, so we'll effectively get two branches at that point, and we'll also potentially get shorter internodes. So that means that we wouldn't have this long, straight, boring effect, but also we get ramification at that particular point. So that's the sort of thing that I will be looking at, because looking around the tree, there are a number of places where that's the case. We've got a longer shoot, we've got multiple buds along those shoots, and ideally, in order to get ramification and increase twigginess, what we want to do is to encourage those buds further back to shoot out. But in order to do that, we'll need to remove the branches above that point. I had a comment on my previous maple video that the turntable I was using was a bit scratchy and grated as I turned it. So I went to IKEA and I bought myself this lovely maple Lazy Susan turntable, which is a lot quieter and also will probably bear a greater weight of tree. So I'm going to use that as I'm working on the trees. It's not something that I will particularly leave outdoors because it's not particularly weatherproofed, and when I'm not using it, it will be going back indoors. But it was quite inexpensive. It was only £8 from IKEA. So if I come back to looking at the tree sideways on, if I rotate it round, I can get a sense of where I might want to do any work. Now, first of all, there are little things like twiggy branches growing up in junctions, which I want to remove and think about which is the best of those to remove at that point. I've also, if I come around the side here, I've got a branch which is emerging from this point here, which if I keep that will probably be better in a lower plane. So potentially that could have some wire on it, but also it's emerging from a point where we've already got two large branches. So the question is, would I want to remove that altogether? Now, I think I originally removed a couple of branches from that point, and I've got some wounds on there that are healing up, as you can see. But if I remove that branch, do I then have a lot of negative space here? So perhaps it's better to wire those branches down to fill in this area here rather than remove. And potentially once that's in leaf, that might hide any unpleasant looking inverse taper which develops at this point. Now I can actually see there's a bud forming in that point, so I'm removing that for a start. And up here in the apex of the tree, I've got a bit of an awkward point here where I've got multiple branches coming out at the same point, and that's quite awkward, so I probably need to make some decisions about that and remove a couple of those. So I've just been going around the tree and looking at branches where we've got quite long internodes and buds that we can cut back to, and I've shortened a number of different branches, removed some that looked a little bit awkward, and so this is where we're at the moment. And now I'm just looking at the apex of the tree, which is this particular branch, and we've got a number of branches emerging from that point, which is a little bit awkward. And I think initially if I remove that one, we've got a couple of shorter ones in the top here. I'm just going to trim out just to tidy up. This area, this junction looks a little bit awkward in there, but I think I may leave that to grow next season and see how that looks and then make some decisions. So if you're in doubt about which particular branches to cut, there's no reason to rush. You know, bonsai being a marathon, not a sprint, so we can take our time and allow things to grow, see where they grow to, and then we can reassess in that coming season and make decisions then. So we've got a couple of smaller branches there. They look a little bit awkward, but perhaps with a bit of wire on, we can reposition those and leave those to grow and fatten up in the coming year. I think I'd like to bring this down a bit into this space, potentially lower that slightly, and also on this side. This branch to me now looks a little bit on the long side, so I think I'm going to come in and remove that there. And again, I'm going to put some wire on that, just position that a bit. So I think potentially that's all the trimming that I'm proposing to do on this tree at the moment. Now, I've never really decided on which is the front of this tree. I think potentially it's there with the tree leaning slightly towards you. There is the potential to change the planting angle on this when I come to pot this up next spring. So let's get some wire on that now. So I've got now a coil of 3mm wire, which I'm hoping will be sufficient to shape. We'll see how we get on with that. Also picked up what may be some 4mm wire, which I think might be required for this thicker branch. I'm going to wire this one to this one and just slightly lower them and reposition them slightly. I'm just initially anchoring that into place on that branch, and going around the back of the trunk. And I'm just doing really a light coil around here. I don't want to attach that too tightly to the branch in case that causes any scarring, particularly in spring once the branch starts developing. And let's just finish off on this other side. I'm just really looking to lower this branch slightly and add just a tiny bit of movement into that as I lower it, bearing in mind that maples are quite brittle, so you need to just be mindful of that and careful as you're having the wire. So this particular branch sort of comes round in a curve this way. That's not necessarily the shape that I want. And lower that. If I come around the other side, I want to just move this one that way slightly and lower this. So if I wire that and that together, it can sometimes be a bit difficult judging the length of wire correctly. I know some people hang on to the coil of wire in one hand, but it's just a bit awkward manhandling that big volume of wire whilst you're also trying to manipulate the branches into place. I'd perhaps rather just waste a little bit of wire and have to trim the ends off rather than risk damaging the tree. Wire that all the way to the end, snip off the excess, just drill that in, and now being ever so careful, just trying to position the branches. So I want to bring this slightly lower down and also move the whole thing to this side slightly. I think that will do. And then this upward section, because I want this to be the apex, I want to lower this area down and do that over here. Another thing to bear in mind when you're wiring is that you can manipulate and move branches over a period of time. You don't need to feel that you need to make the big bend now. You can make part of that bend, let it set, and then continue and try and bend that some more in a future year if necessary. In fact, I'm looking at this section now and wondering whether in fact I need this area here and whether I might be better trimming to that point just there. So we'll have a separation. We've got two branches. We'll also get the increased sense of taper from the larger branch going to the smaller branches, and potentially lose this area. I think that might be a good idea. So we're going to just trim my wire back to that point. And then I'm actually going to come in with my cutters just there and remove that section. And then I can apply some smaller wire to just lay those flat. So I'm just angling those branches downwards slightly. I'm thinking at the moment there might be too much going on from this particular point too, so I'm actually going to take that area off there. And I think that's as much as I'm going to do on this particular tree for now, and see how it gets on in spring. Next up for some work is my greenwood bonsai corkscrew Deshojo. If I just show you that from above, you can see the spiral shape of the trunk there. Now that presents some challenges as regards trimming this, because what I want in the tree in spring is a dome-shaped canopy, and so I have to be quite selective about which particular branches I choose to keep on this. Part of the issue I've got is areas like this, which have got quite a lot of growth going on within there. So I think the main thing I need to do with this tree is go in and address those areas and trim some of that back and be quite selective about which I keep. I don't want the tree to extend out too much in any direction, so I need to control the growth in that sense. And I also need to go through and have a look. There's a little bit of dieback, some dead twiggy bits in there, so I need to clean that up and just really go around the tree and have a little bit of a tidy up rather than any major structural work. To deal with this very fine work, it's useful to have some cutters which are very fine that I can get in and amongst these various branches. And in fact what I've got is some nail clippers which I bought from Amazon, and those cost me about £2. But in terms of this particular sort of delicate work, these are ideal. So I'm really just going in and I'm looking at areas and just tidying up as much as anything else. So I've got dead stubs from trimming from last year, so I can just trim those clean. I've got little areas like this which are dead, so I can trim that off. And I'm just going to initially go around the tree, look for and remove anything that's obviously dead. And then once I've done that, I need to go through and I need to select which of these tiny little branches that are popping out absolutely everywhere I need to keep. So I've now mostly been round and snipped out dead stuff, just tied up little stubs and nubbins from previous years, and now I need to go through and selectively trim out where I've got lots of new shoots and buds for me, because otherwise what we're going to do is we're going to develop the dreaded inverse taper. And also end up with branches which are potentially shading each other out, and therefore result in more dieback in the tree. So if we look at the tree, this is potentially the worst area, and it's difficult to say which bits to definitely keep, which bits to get rid of. And so I think it's just a case of maybe cut out every other one. Because we're just going to get congestion in the tree. I think perhaps take that long one out in favour of some of these shorter ones. We've got a bit of ramification and the branch splitting on that one. At the bottom of that we've got a number of small new shoots, which I think we'll just take out. So we've immediately tidied up that area. Now we'll move to the one just above it. Got a dead bit just there which I'll trim off. To be careful because these bits are coming flying off and hitting me in the eye. So safety goggles are optional. You might want to consider it when doing this kind of work. I think that will be an awkward conversation in casualty. How did you get the injury to your eye, Mr. Hanrahan? Well, I was trimming my bonsai tree. And we've got a branch which is coming up here, and just immediately above it in there there's another branch which is in an awkward spot to grow, slightly awkward spot to get to trim off, but we've done that. So normally in a tree when you're trimming you don't want branches to be growing back in towards the centre of the tree. Now obviously because this is a spiral, we want branches to be growing from the main branches off in that direction, but that takes them back in towards the centre of the tree. So I think the trick is just to make sure that they're in a different plane from the branches below, and then I think we get success. So although I haven't done an awful lot on this, that might be as much as we actually do. So that is tidied up somewhat. See, this is a branch which perhaps would break all the conventional rules. It, when seen from the side, is crossing over this particular branch, but if we were to remove that, or wire it. It takes it out of the profile of the tree, and also this area potentially it would be empty and it would be filling in. It's one that we can leave till the growing season and see what it looks like, and if it's problematic then we can remove it. And I think once the tree is in foliage it will be less obvious. And so I think that's all we're doing on this particular tree for now. So that's all the work that I'm doing on my Japanese maples at the moment. I do have a number of forest or group plantings that I want to just have a quick look at, which I'll do in the next video. Before I finish, I just wanted to show you this, which is my Trident maple next to a rock. Now, Trident maples, I understand their roots can be a little bit susceptible to frost, and so just to try and protect that a little bit, I've just wrapped it in a bit of bubble wrap on the benches. I don't particularly have a greenhouse to put that into, and I'll see how I get on with that. Hopefully that will provide adequate protection to it. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.